Jae-young is a failure in life. He plays around every day. Although he is 3 months overdue on his rent, he doesn't care. He is lying lazily on the sofa when a text message from the creditor arrives. Today is the due date for the debt of 130 million won. However, Jae-young is unable to pay that large sum of money. He ignores the creditor's call. His biggest passion is luxury supercars. At this moment, the door of the rented room opens. A tall, cold man walks in. When Jae-young sees the man, he stands up in fear. The creditor orders Jae-young to sit down. The creditor asks why Jae-young isn't answering the phone. Then he pins Jae-young's neck down on the table. Jae-young begs the creditor to spare his life. Then Jae-young gets a punch in the face and is taken to a secret storage room. When Jae-young opens his eyes, he panics when he sees a person performing amputation surgery at the table next to him. That's the price you pay for running away from debt. Jae-young trembled and begged the creditor to give him a chance. He would soon earn enough money to pay back the debt. The creditor told Jae-young exactly 1 month. If he didn't earn enough money, including principal and interest, Jae-young would suffer the same fate as the person at the next table. After successfully extending the deadline, Jae-young was dumped by gangsters on the side of the road. His face was bruised. He dragged his crippled body back home. There were still 20 days left until the debt was due. Jae-young didn't know where to get such a large sum of money. He decided to go to work as a repairman. However, the meager salary wasn't enough for him to live on. While he was depressed, Jae-young heard an argument. Gil-ryong wanted the manager to raise his salary so he could send money home to his child, but the manager didn't agree. On top of that, the manager tried to suppress Gil-ryong's way of life just because he was Chinese Korean. This made Gil-ryong angry. He threw the manager to the ground and pulled out a knife from his pocket. The manager trembled and said that he had no right to decide on the salary increase. From afar, Jae-young witnessed the whole thing. Out of curiosity, he looked up the Sam tattoo on Gil-ryong's arm and discovered that it was the symbol of the triads, notorious for their cold-blooded and cruel actions. Jae-young was scared when Gil-ryong looked at him. Just then, his phone rang. It was his father calling. Jae-young angrily yelled at his father to send him money. But the caller was not his father, but a hospital nurse, informing him that his father had an accident and was in the hospital. Jae-young immediately took a taxi back. However, instead of asking or worrying about his father, the only thing he cared about was whether his father still had money. Immediately after, the person who caused the accident appeared behind. The driver who caused the accident got out and asked Jae-young to go outside to talk privately. Jae-young looked closely at the expensive imported car and realized that the person who caused the collision must be a rich person. He immediately threatened to sue or to let it go if he was compensated with 5 million won. The driver agreed because he didn't want any trouble. Jae-young pocketed 2 million won and gave the rest to his father. He lied that the person who caused the accident was an old friend, so he agreed to settle. His father was disappointed and said that if Jae-young continued to cause trouble, they would both die. Those words made Jae-young angry. He asked to borrow the money his father still had, but his father firmly refused to give it to him. At that moment, a middle-aged woman appeared. Seeing the attitude between the two, Jae-young sarcastically said that his father was using the money to support her. After saying that, he went outside. Outside, the driver was still waiting for the results. Jae-young approached and noticed that he smelled of alcohol on him. Jae-young immediately threatened that if he didn't hand over another 3 million won, he would report him for drunk driving to the police. After getting the money, Jae-young returned home. Jae-young rummaged through the house, looking for anything of value, and when he found an expensive mechanical watch, he happily put it on his wrist. He also took all the money his father had saved. While searching, he discovered an insurance contract in his father's name, worth 500 million won. If the insured person died due to an accident or illness, the heir would receive the entire amount. A dark thought suddenly appeared in Jae-young's mind. He finally found a way to pay off his huge debt. On the way to the hospital, he was stopped by a group of students. They asked him to buy cigarettes for them. When Jae-young refused, they angrily blocked his way. Jae-young picked up a brick on the side of the road and threatened the kids, causing them to run away. But he didn't expect them to secretly follow him. When Jae-young was caught off guard, they suddenly attacked him. He tried to cover his body to protect the watch, but he was still beaten and left lying in pain on the ground. In a daze, he found himself tied to an operating table. A man with a chainsaw approached and started cutting something. Terrified, Jae-young woke up and found himself in a hospital. There were only 28 days left to pay off the debt. He heard his father arguing with the police. He wondered why the alley where the incident happened didn't have security cameras. As he walked out in pain, Jae-young thought that he couldn't just lie there and wait for death. He remembered what the police said and asked his colleagues to look up Gil-ryong's information. That night, Jae-young followed the clues to a junkyard where illegal immigrants gathered. While he was observing the crowd in front of him, Gil-ryong suddenly appeared right behind him. Gil-ryong warns Jae-young to leave. leave, saying that he doesn't like strangers on his property. Jae-young replies that he's here to find Gil-ryong. Gil-ryong cautiously asks Jae-young what he needs. Jae-young says that he knows Gil-ryong needs money urgently, and he has a job he wants to cooperate with a reward of 60 million won. Gil-ryong becomes interested when he hears this large sum. Jae-young says that he wants Gil-ryong to kill his father. Gil-ryong thinks silently for a while, then finally nods in agreement. They begin to discuss the details. Jae-young says that his father goes to church every Friday. On the way, his father has to pass through a deserted alley without security cameras. He wants Gil-ryong to stage the incident to look like an accident. Only then can Jae-young get the insurance money. Once completed, Gil-ryong can leave Korea and return to China. Gil-ryong asked how he could trust him. Jae-young took out a tape recorder, revealing that he had recorded the entire conversation as a commitment between the two parties. Gil-ryong was satisfied with plan. The next day, Jae-young was surprised to see Gil-ryong following him. He angrily asked why he was here. Gil-ryong said he had learned about the insurance contract and wanted to raise the price, asking for at least 120 million won, otherwise he wouldn't do it. Jae-young knew he was cornered, so he agreed. The day to carry out the plan finally arrived. To create an alibi, Jae-young invited his senior to go drinking with him, but the senior left halfway, making him upset. Jae-young looked at his watch, then continued his schedule, going to a karaoke bar for entertainment, then stopping by a fast food restaurant. Outside, it was pouring rain. He sat waiting for the results with an anxious look. At the same time, in the alley, Gil-ryong was lying in wait, waiting for his prey to appear. When Jae-young's father passed by, Gil-ryong immediately drove his car straight into him. The impact knocked him to the ground. Gil-ryong got out of the car and carefully checked. After confirming that the victim was dead, he left. The next morning, Jae-young woke up tired and realized that he had spent the night at the fast food restaurant. Jae-young returned home and waited for news from Gil-ryong, but Gil-ryong did not contact him. Jae-young anxiously checked to see if there was any news about the accident in the newspaper, but he did not find any information. Just then, the police called and said that they had found the body of Jae-young's father. He tried to hide his smug smile. Before going to the police station, Jae-young carefully practiced crying. Seeing him so miserable, the police also showed sympathy for the victim's family. A police officer came to comfort him, but Jae-young pretended to be angry, blaming them for not catching the person who caused the accident. At that moment, the police said the case was not simple, because someone had intentionally stabbed and escaped. Jae-young was slightly scared when he heard the mention of witness. It turned out that last night, the woman who often went with his father had witnessed the whole incident. It was also she who had called the police. However, even Jae-young did not expect that his father's body was not found in that alley, but was discovered by people on the mountain. He was angry when things started to get out of control. It turned out that a climber was filming and was attracted by the sound of a dog barking. The climber was curious and approached, and when the dog left, she was horrified to find the body buried underground, so she quickly called the police. It all started the night before. A rich hospital director had a dinner date with his girlfriend. He had reserved a table at a top-class restaurant. After the meal, the girlfriend invited the director to a villa on the mountain. The director was a little embarrassed, but still followed her wishes. The woman said that she had been here with friends, then took out a bottle of wine that had been prepared. Although the director refused because he did not want to drink, he could not resist because of his girlfriend's insistence. After the party ended, the director was awakened by his girlfriend's phone call. She said that she had to leave immediately because her best friend's father had just passed away. Because he had drunk alcohol, the director intended to hire someone to drive instead, but his girlfriend was angry, so he had to drive himself to take her. The mountain pass was deserted, not a soul in sight. The director drove while comforting his girlfriend, saying that she had worked hard all night. She deliberately approached him, saying that she wanted to help him sober up, but the director refused because she was driving. His girlfriend did not pay attention and suddenly kissed him on the lips. At that moment, the car hit someone. The girl panicked and asked the director what he had hit. He answered with a trembling voice that it seemed to be a person. The director hurriedly got out of the car to check, and when he saw the man lying on the road, he realized that the victim was dead. His girlfriend panicked and wanted to call the police, but the director immediately stopped her. If the police found out that he was driving after drinking, his career would be over. The director was confused, not knowing how to handle the body, and then turned to blame his girlfriend for forcing him to drink. At that moment, a car drove by from afar. The director quickly hid the body on the side of the road. The other car stopped, then backed up. A young man got out and asked the director if he needed any help. The director tried to act calm, saying that he had just lost control of the car. After that, he made an excuse to send them away, but unexpectedly, the young man called him back. He wanted to ask if there was a place to rest nearby, and the dean pointed to a mountain villa. After the car left, the dean collapsed in the middle of the road. His girlfriend was worried that everything had been exposed. exposed. At this moment, the dean opened the trunk of the car and dragged the man's body into it. His girlfriend panicked and asked what the dean was going to do. He coldly said to bury this person. This place was remote, so no one would know what happened. Despite his girlfriend's objections, the dean still decided to do as he pleased. At that moment, they discovered a cyclist approaching. Both of them were frightened, thinking that the cyclist had heard everything. As soon as he left, the dean rushed over and pushed him down. The strong impact knocked the cyclist unconscious. The dean trembled as he looked around. After making sure that no one was around, he dragged the person into the trunk. He couldn't let any witnesses escape. After that, the dean drove to a deserted place. His girlfriend tried to convince him to stop, but it was too late. At that moment, the cyclist woke up, screaming in fear when he found himself lying next to a corpse. The director angrily pulled out his golf club and opened the trunk to beat the man up. The man begged, promising not to tell anyone. The man begged for his life, but the director did not agree. The director asked him to read the account number, then transferred 10 million won to him and said that from now on, they were both accomplices. What they needed to do now was to dig a hole to bury the body before dawn. The cyclist had no choice but to dig a hole with the director. Meanwhile, the director accidentally injured his hand. Time was running out, and he painfully tried to finish the burial before dawn. He went crazy and dragged the body down the hole he had just dug. Although the hole was small, he just wanted to end it all. After the burial, the two returned to the car. The cyclist demanded more money, otherwise he would call the police. To shut up this money-grubbing man, the director transferred another 20 million won and told him to keep this a secret for the rest of his life. After sending his girlfriend home, the director painfully held his wound, then took out the memory card from the dashcam. All his remaining savings were spent on car repairs. The director disposed of all the evidence before being discovered. Every day, he went online to read the news, and for the time being, the body had not been found. But he did not know that the two people who appeared that night were watching him from afar, and they had discovered something. The director was suffering from the pain of his wound and was drowning in debt. His girlfriend was cold, and everything had turned their backs on him. Suddenly, the office door opened, and the cyclist walked in with a smile. Jae-young felt excited as he stood in front of the director's clinic. The director angrily asked him why he had come here. The cyclist calmly replied that his conscience was bothering him, but he couldn't bring himself to report the matter. The director frowned and asked what he wanted. The cyclist coldly told the director to transfer another 30 million won. The director was upset, holding his head in an attempt to contain his anger, then reluctantly promised to send the money this week. The cyclist smiled with satisfaction after achieving his goal and left. Immediately after, the director vented his anger on the surrounding objects. At this moment, the garage employee called to report that his car had been repaired, but the dent was quite severe. The director said that he had only hit a deer, but when he checked, the front of the car was undamaged. Only then did he realize that something was wrong. The director hurriedly ran to the garbage collection area and searched for the jacket he had thrown away. Inside the jacket, he found a memory card from a dashcam. With trembling hands, the director inserted the card into the reader to review the video recording what had happened that night. Surprisingly, in the video, a man fell from above. This proved that the director was not the one who hit and killed person. He wondered why the victim fell from above, then rewound the video to see a wider angle. The director was shocked to find a figure on the overpass. It was the cyclist. Realizing that he had been set up, he immediately called his girlfriend to inform her. It was all a pre-arranged plot. The director said that he would report the cyclist and needed his girlfriend's testimony as proof. After that, he asked her to meet him in person and showed her the video. But when the dean asked, how did he know for sure that a car would pass by, the girlfriend suddenly fell silent, her eyes flashing with worry. It was this question that made the dean begin to suspect. At this moment, she revealed her true colors. It turned out that she was just a gold digger. The dean angrily grabbed her, his anger gradually making him lose control. At that moment, a strange man walked in, and the dean realized that it was the cyclist. He asked the dean to stop, then suddenly knocked him unconscious. It turned out that the dean had been tricked by the two from the beginning. Now, he understood the whole truth. They decided to deal with the dean once and for all. The whole incident was captured by a couple of news hunters. The two followed their car to an abandoned factory. Standing in front of that familiar place, the girlfriend recalled her high school days. At that time, just because she was jealous of Ju-yeon being chosen as the student representative, she tricked the other girl into falling into a trap and then harmed her. Until now, that memory still haunts the unfortunate friend. The boss beside her reminded her to focus on the main thing first. The two chose an empty plot of land and started digging a hole. At this time, the anesthetic in the dean's body had worn off, and he slowly woke up. Seeing the two traitors busying themselves in front, he gently moved to the driver's seat and quietly started the car. In a split second, the dean stepped on the gas and crashed into the front, causing his girlfriend to be thrown away and die on the spot. spot, only the boss was still alive. He angrily grabbed a shovel and rushed towards the dean. The dean was scared and begged for his life, saying that if he was let go, he would transfer 50 million to the boss. But the boss was not that stupid. He immediately knocked the dean unconscious, then coldly killed him. The entire crime was captured by 2 paparazzi. After finishing the crime, he dragged the director's body and threw it into the hole he had dug. At the same time, at police station, the person in charge of the investigation began to notice Jae-young's strange behavior. The police asked Jae-young where he had been the night before. Jae-young said he had gone to dinner with a friend and then told them the whole story. The police went to each place to verify. The store clerk confirmed that Jae-young was indeed there. The police were surprised that the clerk could remember the customer from just a photo. The clerk herself did not understand why, only saying that she had a special impression of that customer. After arranging the funeral for her father, Jae-young went to the insurance company to receive the money. The clerk carefully checked the contract information, saying that more time was needed to evaluate the case. Jae-young was tired and waiting in the guest area. At that moment, the tattooed man called, but Jae-young did not answer. The long wait made him frustrated. Jae-young had been sitting there since early morning until almost the end of work when the employee invited him into the boss's office to talk. Jae-young was annoyed at being made to wait for 3 hours, but when he entered, he was shocked to realize that person opposite him was the person who had bumped into his father earlier. The boss said that the company could not pay the insurance money right away because they needed to wait for the police investigation to determine whether the incident was really an accident. Jae-young was angry that he did not receive the money, thinking that just signing the payment contract would be enough. The boss sternly warned that if Jae-young continued to have such an attitude, the company would call the police. Pressed, Jae-young remained silent. The boss took out a souvenir and sent him home. Jae-young got mad, threw the gift on the ground, and left. Then, he returned to the funeral home. The funeral home staff ran over to remind him that they still hadn't received the deposit. Jae-young had to use the condolence money to pay. The aunt was angry when she saw her nephew living a miserable life and said that someone was looking for him. Jae-young went to the guest dining room where the tattooed man was eating deliciously. Jae-young angrily asked him why he came here, then asked to go outside to talk. The tattooed man silently followed, saying that he wanted to get back the money Jae-young had promised. But Jae-young had no intention of paying, especially after he had ruined everything. He asked in a harsh voice, "Why did you bury the body in the mountain?" Only then did the tattooed man tell the truth that the old man was still alive after the stabbing. Jae-young angrily cursed, making the tattooed man mad, punching him down and coldly threatening him. If Jae-young fails to pay the agreed amount, Gil-ryong will hand over the recording to the police. Now that important evidence is in his hands. Jae-young tries to snatch the tape recorder back but fails. Gil-ryong coldly gives Jae-young a week to pay, or he will have to bear all the consequences. After leaving, Gil-ryong is secretly followed by the police. He returns to the scrapyard, which is considered his territory, not knowing that his every move is being monitored by the police. Taking advantage of the time when he is having dinner with his juniors, the police sneak into his room to find incriminating evidence. After taking the tape recorder, they immediately retreat. However, on the way out of the area, the police are discovered by Gil-ryong. He goes straight to block the way, then pretends to ask police if he has a lighter. When the policeman approaches, he coldly asks, "What are you doing in the scrapyard at this time?" The policeman awkwardly replied that he was just there to buy scrap, but Gil-ryong noticed that everyone had long since left work. The policeman tried to leave, but the man quickly stopped him, put a chokehold on him, and then growled, "Did that bastard Jae-young send you here?" The policeman panicked and tried to break free, but Gil-ryong was no match for him. He strangled him, then coldly finished him off. The entire process was recorded by the security camera. After disposing of the body, Gil-ryong called Jae-young, angrily yelling when he learned that Jae-young had brought police to him. He didn't have much time left and needed the money before tomorrow. Jae-young panicked and shouted that the insurance company hadn't paid yet, but Gil-ryong didn't care. He warned that if Jae-young didn't have enough money, he would come find him and drop him. Driven to the brink of collapse, Jae-young goes crazy, clutching the hammer in his hand. Now, he has no choice but to strike first. A fierce fire suddenly breaks out in the abandoned factory. Firefighters quickly arrive to put out the fire, while police cordoned off the scene. As the fire gradually died down, rescuers began searching for survivors. Suddenly, a firefighter discovered a survivor whose entire body was severely burned. The survivor was immediately taken to the hospital where Ju-yeon worked. She gave the patient a reassuring signal, softly telling him to endure. Then, she began to treat the wound. Every day, Ju-yeon had to deal with irritable and angry patients. In a fit of anger, the patient threw a porcelain cup on the table, causing a piece of glass to accidentally graze and injure Ju-yeon. However, she still tried to endure it. At that moment, a silver-haired man appeared. He pressed hard on the patient's injured leg, forcing him to apologize to Ju-yeon. After receiving the apology, Ju-yeon calmly explained the patient's condition, then turned to remind the uncle not to do it again. The uncle pointed to the wound on her face, a hint of concern in his eyes. When Ju-yeon left, he immediately followed. She was surprised to see the uncle looking for her. He said that he noticed the thoughtful look on her face, then gave Ju-yeon a business card, saying that if she needed any help, she should come to his company. At that moment, her boyfriend called Ju-yeon for help. The doctor was examining the victim of the fire last night. Because of the emergency, they had not yet had time to ask the injured person's name. When the victim said her name, Ju-yeon was stunned by that name. She would never forget it. Jae-rong was the man who raped her in the factory years ago. Before Ju-yeon left, Jae-rong thanked her for saving his life. Ju-yeon's mood became heavy. She stopped paying attention to anything around her. Her boyfriend realized she was hiding something from him, but when he asked, she only coldly replied that she had nothing to say, and then left first. Returning to her room, Ju-yeon trembled, taking medicine to calm herself. She angrily threw a glass of water at the mirror in front of her. That night, Ju-yeon secretly searched for information about patient. Just as she got the medical records, her boyfriend suddenly walked in. He wondered why she was so interested in that patient, but in the end, he chose to stay silent and not ask further. Ju-yeon just wanted to confirm the information once more. Then, she contacted the silver-haired man, whom she knew was a former inspector. After retiring, he opened an investigation office specializing in adultery cases and collecting information. When he saw Ju-yeon coming, he happily asked what she needed from him. "As long as the client trusts me," he said, "then I will get to work." Ju-yeon handed him a wad of money, asking him to investigate the backgrounds of 3 people. With his experience, this was no problem for the uncle. As soon as Ju-yeon left, his team immediately returned to work. They were the people who had been following the director before. That night, the silver-haired uncle had relied on his old connections to gather information. An old teammate was surprised to hear that he was looking for a rapist. The silver-haired uncle paused, shocked to hear this from his old friend. After returning to the office, the uncle flipped through the shocking case files from many years ago. The perpetrators of that case were the 3 people that Ju-yeon had asked him to help find. It turned out that many years ago, Ju-yeon had gone on a blind date. However, the target was late that day. The two then went for a walk together in the snow. Suddenly, the lights in the park went out, and from ahead, 2 masked men appeared, blocking their way. They immediately attacked the boyfriend and then brutally humiliated Ju-yeon. She called the police immediately. The police quickly identified and arrested 3 suspects. But Ju-yeon was shocked to learn that her boyfriend was also arrested, clearly a victim, like her. The police said that after the investigation, they discovered that Jae-young was the ringleader. When Ju-yeon saw his face, she was extremely frightened. That horrible memory haunted her for many years. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Ju-yeon gently entered the room of the severely burned man. She suspected that he was the one who had harmed her. Just then, her uncle called to report the results of the investigation. The first of the 3 perpetrators had been released from prison for repeated assault, but 3 years ago, he committed suicide in prison. The second had a drug-related conviction, and last year, he died of an overdose. Ju-yeon held her breath, waiting for news about Jae-young. The uncle said that since the incident years ago, he had been living a very closed life, currently wandering in another province, and had no job. Hearing that, Ju-yeon breathed a sigh of relief that the man in front of her was not the one she had feared. However, when she left the hospital room, the patient still followed her with an unreadable gaze. The next morning, the inspector called the uncle, saying that there was a mistake in the file. When he heard the news, the silver-haired uncle hurriedly called Ju-yeon to apologize. He said that Jae-young was not in another province, but in fact, he was right next to her. Ju-yeon was stunned to know that he was in the very hospital where she worked. The uncle continued to explain, Jae-young was the burned man who was brought to the hospital after the fire. Ju-yeon immediately ran to the hospital room to find him. She stood still in front of the door, hesitating whether to go in. Inside, Jae-young was checking his wound when he realized that someone was standing outside. He was about to open the door, but at that moment, the sound of police footsteps rang out. The police said they were there to take the victim's statement. Not wanting to interfere with the work, Ju-yeon left. The police entered the room and began questioning. They wanted to know why Jae-young was at the abandoned factory. He remembered that night. As soon as he got into the car, he was suddenly attacked by a man from behind. When he woke up, he found himself tied to a chair, his face covered in blood. In front of him was a scene of 2 men fighting fiercely. Jae-young struggled to escape, but to no avail. The police asked why the 2 were fighting, but Jae-young didn't know either. And then one of the men started pouring gasoline everywhere. He even fell directly on Jae-young. Then he threw a fire that burned everything. Since it was a criminal case, the police needed to take Jae-young's fingerprints. However, his hand was badly burned. As soon as the police left, Jae-young called the doctor. Ju-yeon was standing in front of her equipment. She gently picked up the sharp scalpel. Then she coldly walked to Jae-young's room. But Jae-young was not in the the room. Just then, Jae-young returned. He was happy to see the doctor come to visit him. Ji-yeon asked, "Why are you here?" Jae-young laughed when Ji-yeon recognized him. He walked over and sat down on the bed. Then he signaled for her to sit next to him and talk. Ji-yeon angrily pulled out the scalpel. Then she stabbed Jae-young in the head with a knife. Jae-young painfully held his neck tightly. Blood began to flow. But Ji-yeon was not done yet. She continued to stab the man who had ruined her life. However, those were only things that happened in her mind. Today is the day Jae-young is discharged from the hospital. Before leaving, he also thanked Ji-yeon. Ji-yeon was surprised that it was not time for him to be discharged yet. The nurse said that the patient insisted on leaving, so he couldn't stop him. Feeling that something was wrong, Ji-yeon immediately chased after Jae-young. As soon as he entered the elevator, Ji-yeon stopped him. Jae-young was surprised that the doctor was looking for him. Ji-yeon asked if he didn't remember him, but Jae-young didn't remember at all. Only when Ji-yeon mentioned his name did Jae-young signal Ji-yeon to go inside. The elevator door closed. Jae-young took off his mask. Then he approached Ji-yeon in front of his disgusting face. Ji-yeon was afraid and didn't dare to face him. Jae-young warned Ji-yeon, the name from before no longer existed. If you don't have the guts to look, don't pretend to know him. Then he laughed and left. Ji-yeon quickly regained her composure and immediately chased after Jae-young's car. He was annoyed that Ji-yeon kept following him. Ji-yeon said that she didn't want to have nightmares anymore. Jae-young laughed loudly and ordered the driver to drive away. Ji-yeon looked at the rolling car with hatred, swearing in her heart that she would definitely take him down. Everything started to spiral out of control for the boss. After disposing of the director's body, he drove the car back and leisurely used it as his property. Meanwhile, the director's wife was worried about her husband, suspecting that he had a lover outside. Therefore, she hired Uncle Silver's detective agency to follow him. Uncle Silver said that when he had concrete evidence, he would contact him immediately. After completing the task for the client, two people from the news team hurriedly ran up to see Uncle Silver. Even the news professionals could not have expected the terrible thing that happened tonight. They had taken a photo of the director having an affair. When the uncle continued to scroll through the photos, he was shocked to find the director lying motionless on the ground, and in front of him was the person who had murdered the director. Going back 10 days before the fire, after dealing with the director, the boss went to see Gil-ryong. It turned out that these two people had known each other before and had been in the same cell. At that time, the boss was the cell leader, and before being released, he had handed over this position to Gil-ryong and given him a piece of paper with his contact number, telling him to call if there was any lucrative business deal. When he was released from prison, only his girlfriend came to pick him up. The two had known each other since high school and were now working together to make money. Their targets were rich people. The girlfriend would lure the prey into the trap, and then it would be the boss's turn to appear, playing the villain to beat the prey. If the victim refuses to pay, he threatens to expose the illicit relationship and forces them to borrow money at high interest rates. With this trick, they have fooled many people. Even rich presidents and businessmen cannot escape. One evening while relaxing, the boss suddenly receives a call from an unknown number. He is surprised to see that the contact is Gil-ryong. When he meets his old junior, he laughs and asks what's going on. Gil-ryong says that he has a business deal to cooperate with. The boss is interested and agrees to meet. Gil-ryong says that the insurance for this deal is 200 million, but the boss immediately points out that with current situation, the number must be at least 500 million won. After confirming the identity of the prey, he is surprised to realize that person is the young Jae-young he used to know. Gil-ryong is surprised that the boss knows him. The boss laughed and said that all the thugs in the countryside knew each other. Today was Friday, the day Jae-young's father usually went to church to pray. After the service, he returned home through the familiar alley, unaware that two men were waiting in ambush. As soon as they saw him, they drove towards him. After the first hit, the father fell down in pain and tried to stand up. The boss got angry, stepped on the gas pedal, reversed the car and hit him again. When he fell down, motionless on the ground, Gil-ryong ran down to check. At this time, he discovered a witness and immediately chased after him, but the person quickly escaped. The boss called Gil-ryong back, saying that the father was not dead yet, so they needed to take him away. Gil-ryong coldly suffocated the father. However, the boss realized that if he did so, the insurance company would investigate and they would not receive compensation. At that moment, he came up with a crazy plan. He told Gil-ryong to leave first, and he told him to let him handle the body. The boss happily wiped away all traces of the victim's body and then told his girlfriend the whole plan. He carried the father's body to the pedestrian overpass and waited for the director's car to pass by. As soon as the car arrived, he threw the body down. However, things did not go according to plan. 10 hours before the fire broke out, the director's body was discovered. However, that was not what they were concerned about. Gil-ryong said that he would go to Jae-young to collect the money and then return to China. The boss cautiously asked Gil-ryong if he would cause any any trouble. At the same time, the police discovered the body of their accomplice, and after obtaining a video recording of the incident, they immediately sealed off the scene to hunt down the culprit. During the search of the warehouse, the police discovered Jae-young's father's secret base. At this time, Jae-young was preparing his luggage to go find Gil-ryong for revenge. He had planned it very carefully, even practicing in advance. At that moment, Gil-ryong appeared. Jae-young quickly hid the hammer and signaled Gil-ryong to get in the car. As soon as he sat down, Gil-ryong noticed that there was something strange about Jae-young. Jae-young asked him if he had a recorder with him. When he confirmed that Gil-ryong had it, he calmly said, "Now let's go get the money." Jae-young did not expect that the boss was also secretly following behind. At this time, the entire highway was blocked by the police to search for Gil-ryong. Jae-young laughed when he saw how scared Gil-ryong was. When their car was stopped for inspection, the officer asked Gil-ryong to take off his helmet, but Jae-young quickly stood in front of him. The officer was suspicious and gave Jae-young a wanted poster. It turned out that the police were looking for the boss. When the boss realized he was wanted, he panicked and abandoned the car to escape. Meanwhile, Jae-young drove Gil-ryong to an abandoned factory, and Gil-ryong gradually realized that Jae-young was deliberately stalling for time. Gil-ryong warned Jae-young not to play any tricks, but Jae-young just silently opened the trunk, then got out of the car and took the bag from the back. He started the timer and handed the bag to Gil-ryong. As soon as Gil-ryong opened the bag to check, he was stunned to see that it was filled with old clothes. He quickly searched the bag, but did not find a single note. Realizing that he had been tricked, Gil-ryong went crazy. At that moment, the alarm clock rang, catching his attention. As Gil-ryong turned around, Jae-young immediately attacked him with a hammer. However, things did not go as Jae-young expected. Gil-ryong quickly subdued him and angrily hit Jae-young repeatedly with a hammer. Jae-young was badly injured and crawled out of the car in pain. At the same time, Gil-ryong called the boss for help. At this time, the police had blocked all the roads. Gil-ryong said that they needed to deal with Jae-young and get the money, then they could escape to another country. Suddenly, the boss had an idea. He stared at Jae-young's bloody face and realized that Jae-young looked very much like him. Without hesitation, he took a piece of glass and stabbed Gil-ryong straight in the body. Seriously injured, Gil-ryong tried to fight back, but because of too much blood loss, he quickly collapsed. After dealing with Gil-ryong, the boss immediately changed clothes with Jae-young. From that moment on, he officially became Jae-young. The boss took gasoline from the car and poured it all over the factory. Despite Jae-young's crying and begging for his life, he coldly smiled and lit the fire. The fire quickly rose, burning everything. The boss calmly watched the fire engulf everything, ignoring Jae-young's miserable screams, then cruelly threw more fire to send him back to dust. However, just as he was about to leave, a huge explosion suddenly occurred, causing the ceiling to collapse on him. The boss painfully tried to crawl out but couldn't. The fire quickly spread to him. Under the terrible heat, he panicked as he watched the wooden planks falling in front of him. Since then, the boss was haunted and constantly had nightmares. He moved to Jae-young's house to hide. When he saw the messy furniture in the house, he angrily cleaned up and started to memorize all of Jae-young's personal information, carefully preparing so that no one would discover him. After taking the medicine, he gradually fell asleep. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Ju-yeon's boyfriend discovers that she knows the mysterious patient. Surprisingly, Ju-yeon admits that she once wanted to kill him, which worries her boyfriend. Ju-yeon quickly reassures him, telling him not to worry. She then goes to the drugstore, opens the safe, takes the medicine she needs, and coldly calls her uncle, saying that she needs his help. At the same time, the boss is awakened by the phone ringing. He angrily replies that he has already paid all the funeral expenses, implying that the other person should not call to ask for money again. The other party said that the insurance had prepared the money to pay, but a problem arose. A week before his death, the father changed the beneficiary to another person. The boss was furious when he learned that someone dared to steal his money. After getting information about the new beneficiary, he angrily went to see the other party. On the way, he accidentally bumped into a gray-haired uncle. The uncle apologized for spilling a glass of water on him, then returned the medicine box that he had secretly swapped. The boss did not suspect anything, took the medicine box and angrily left. He took a taxi to the church that the father often went to and loudly scolded the nun, demanding that the inheritance money be donated to the church. The loud noise made the nun come out, and as soon as he saw her, he shouted loudly to demand the money back. However, the nun refused, saying that he should respect the father's decision. The boss angrily shouted at her, "Do I look like I'm joking with you? If you don't give me the money, you'll pay." Suddenly, the nun took out a recording of her father's last words before he passed away. In his will, he expressed his wish to donate all his assets to the church. This made the boss even more angry. Suddenly, he saw Ju-yeon sitting below looking at him. He walked over and asked Ju-yeon in annoyance what he did wrong, but she didn't answer. Jin looked at him with hatred. Not knowing that the medicine box had been switched, he drank it without thinking. shaking. After walking a few steps, he began to feel uncomfortable. The pain immediately came, and he tried to drag himself back home step by step. His body could no longer take it when he reached the intersection. The gang leader looked around in fear. This was the place where he had once driven his car and killed his father. He laughed wildly, thinking that his father had come back to haunt him. As soon as he turned his back, Jian coldly appeared, walking towards him step by step, making him tremble slightly. The gang leader acknowledged Jian's persistence, but he insisted that he was not Jae-ryong. Jae-ryong was dead, so she should stop looking for him. Jian replied that she had seen him screaming for compensation. Even if he wanted to deny it, he could not tell the whole truth. At this point, the drug began to take effect, making him dizzy. In a fit of anger, he grabbed Jian's hair, but his body was exhausted, and he collapsed in the trash by the roadside. Jian pulled out a scalpel, coldly saying that he would pay. However, just as she was about to do it, Jian's boyfriend appeared to stop her, telling her not to do it. He said that he knew about her past, but still wanted her to stop. Jian was confused. Between love and hate, she didn't know what to choose. Finally, Jian put down the knife. The boss smiled mockingly, causing her to angrily rush forward and punch him hard, saying that she would remember that face for the rest of her life. After the mission failed, Jian and her boyfriend left the scene, leaving the boss lying on the garbage dump. When the drug gradually wore off, he got up in anger because Jian played a painful trick on him, then went crazy and returned home. Only then did he discover that the medicine bottle had been switched, and the entire plan was all set up by Jian. At the same time, at the police station, the inspectors were investigating the fire. They carefully read each file and compared it with the victim's statements. Although there were many suspicious points, they still had to wait for the forensic examination results to save time. An inspector called to inform them that they needed more information. The boss anxiously said that he would come tomorrow, and then hung up immediately. Sensing that the boss was planning to escape, the inspector sped to Jae-young's house. At this time, the boss was packing his luggage when he suddenly saw a flyer from his old school. He remembered his previous conversation with his girlfriend, when she said she wanted to deal with someone. He was the one who suggested the entire plan to harm Jian. He finally understood why Jian attacked him, but it was too late to recall his memories. As soon as he left the house, the police came to search. The boss was absent-mindedly waiting for the bus when the phone rang to inform him that today was the due date. He was completely unaware of Jae-young's death. In just a moment, a black car appeared in front of him, and his men immediately rushed to control him and forced him into the car. Meanwhile, another black car also approached Jian's boyfriend. He was taken to a secret warehouse, and as soon as he entered the dressing room, the creditor appeared behind him. He knew that today was his last day working there. Jian's boyfriend said that it was time to stop. He wanted to start a family with her. The creditor warmly gave the boyfriend a farewell gift, then ordered him to take everything from the boss. The boss trembled as he was tied up on the operating table, and the boyfriend slowly approached. He recognized the burns on the other person's body. Wasn't that Jae-young? When the boss learned that the other person knew Jae-young, the boss panicked and begged for his life. But this was the fate between the two. The boyfriend was furious when he realized that he was the one who had harmed Jian. He took off his mask, revealing a familiar face. The boss screamed loudly, begging to be released, but it was too late. The boyfriend immediately covered his mouth with a cloth and began the surgery without anesthesia. The boss painfully felt each part of his body being separated. After avenging Jian, the boyfriend visited her, and Jian finally shook off her haunting past. She happily walked around the hospital and accidentally met Uncle Silverhair. In his hand was a newly found file. However, Jian refused. She no longer wanted to know any more information about Jae-young. Uncle respected her decision and tore up the autopsy report. The movie ended here. Thank you for following our movie review. Hopefully these shares have given you a new perspective on the movie. Don't forget to like, share, and follow to update more interesting reviews. Thank you and see you again.